We'll call the meeting to order. We are all present and accounted for. Would everyone please stand, face the flag, and if so inclined, join us as we say the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Sampson, do you have anything to add to the agenda? Okay. I would look for a motion to approve the agenda as shown.
I'll make a motion.
Clint on the motion,
I'll second.
second by Luke. Other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We have no scheduled presenters this evening. Public input. Does anyone wish to speak to the board for up to 3 minutes concerning issues on the agenda this evening? Moving on. Consideration to approve the finance report. Mr. Davison?
Sure.
Yep.
Seeing if my glasses, I'm trying to read it out. Bank balance on top, and it's kind of the general format you've seen in the past. In the kind of area or time frame that we're in right now through the end of May on this report, there's not a whole lot of things that are out of the norm that go in here. But some things to kind of point out that are of note. We keep pushing back the bus and van purchases. We try to look and locate those. We do a bus purchase on the line. I actually had a call from the vendor, and it will be ready hopefully at the end of April. When he called and asked when we wanted it, I said last August. We're kind of he's looking more for the billing time frame.
We might get it for 2 weeks?
We might get it. And then for 15 years after that one.
Okay.
But he's looking more concerned about the July 1 billing, and it's in this current budget, so we want to make sure it's out of this budget, otherwise we're doubling up on the next one and making that hit there. So when we get it, it will come out of this year's budget. We just won't have a whole lot of student use time this fiscal year with it. But it does keep us on track transportation-wise at the rotation for the vehicles. So
Just one thing quick, I'm assuming buses all come with warranty, and
yep.
Would it make sense to just wait until end of August?
Not really.
Okay.
When we get new buses, what ends up happening is the older buses get pushed into routes, and the newer ones stay for activities, so they get the kind of miles or the longer miles put on them, and the nicer buses for those. And then as they reach that, it's usually about 4 or 5 years in, then those activity route buses are going into the actual route buses. So
Okay.
they'll be used in the summer for whether it be field trips, camp kids type stuff.
Sure.
So as soon as we get it, they'll put it into service.
Right away, yeah.
Yep. Well, at least as soon as DOT checks off, that's always the process too. But that's on a brand new bus, that happens pretty quickly. But if you slide down, one thing that will be coming in at the end of May, and you've seen in your household as well, the first half of the property taxes will come. You see the Dakota County and the Goodhue County taxes, and those are estimates, but based on what our levy report is, you'll see the first half comes at the end of May, and then there'll be another payment real similar to the same amount that happens in the first part of June, and that's in our cash flow that we have in the sheet, but this is just all the data we put out for meeting. Other than that, it's just the normal bills that go in and out each month, payroll, and any ideas payments coming in through the remainder of the fiscal year. If there are any questions, I can do my best to answer whatever you have, and otherwise it's a pretty quick one this month.
That about a third of the way, fourth of the way down is a CCC roof, 50 grand.
Yep.
Does that?
So there's still a little bit of cleanup that needs to be taken care of on that roof. Some things that weren't, either materials weren't ready at the time when they ramped up, or weather kind of allowed. And retainage. So just make sure that the project's all finalized, we checked off, and dot all the I's and cross the T's before we make those final payments. So that's just held in there until that final checkoff is made on that. And that's all part of the building project and within the budget.
Didn't go quite as smoothly as we thought, or quite as
No,
timely.
I think we had some procurement issues, materials, and I also think they had some labor some issues there to with. But in all, I think it progressed to the point where we had the main thing for us, as far as we're concerned, is we've got a watertight roof. So.
Yep, sure. Other questions for Mr. Davison?
So Josh, with the van purchase, we're still gonna keep it on the schedule, even though we're getting it so late? It'll
Yep.
be marked for this year, and we'll just kind of keep filling.
Yep, so budget-wise, we've got it into this year's budget. In terms of vans in the transportation road for students, you get 12 years from the manufacturer date. So the newer the vehicle that we can get, the better in terms of use for us. Even though we know we probably drive, I got a car outside that's almost 20 years old. We drive much further, or much longer, but in terms of transporting students, 12 years. And it's not from the model year. You might have a 2005. It goes by the date of manufacture, so it could be January of that 2005, it could be December of that 2005. It's 12 years from that date. So when we were able to find someone, we had some conversations. Our Guthrie County Ed District uses Enterprise, and they have the ability to maybe have some vehicles. The issue we're running into is what we kind of tend to budget for vans, and a pre-pandemic or maybe shortage of vehicles is way different than what vehicles are selling for right now. So a matter of trying to not only find one, but also find something that fits in the cost spectrum is what we're doing. We were able to get a used one earlier this year. And that's helped with cost, and then with the rotation of the fleet, we have some vans that will come due at the end of this fiscal year that we just won't be able to use to transport students. Perfectly fine vans, but not for transporting students.
This may be a silly question, but you know, a lot of these vehicles are waiting on chips and whatnot. Is there a chance that these vehicles could be older than what we anticipate we're getting by manufacture date?
Possibly, if we were to, say if we get a deal with the dealer to have a van procured, we'd have to wait to chips, possibly that could happen.
Okay.
What we're seeing a lot of times with dealers right now is they don't want to sell the vehicle at government price because they can get it sold either at full list or higher. So they're going to take where the money's at instead of where the contract with the government might be. So it's harder to find some of those dealers that will do that. So we want to make sure we're doing what's right for the district financially, and not just overpaying for one, but we also want to make sure we get safe vehicles for the kids too. So we'll do balancing.
But with that question though, so say it was manufactured January of '21, and it doesn't get the chip until this summer.
Manufacturer date.
So we potentially lose a year on our.
But would that be an
Service.
option to go to the state to argue that you would be able to get that year and a half back?
You can argue anything with the state, whether or not they'll let us do it. I don't
Yeah,
know.
well, I'm just saying that it's a possibility. That's a good question.
Yeah, but that's, the DOT, when they come in and they inspect all the vehicles, they're pretty hard and fast with their rules. The garage does a great job. Generally, when they come through, there are very few dings on vehicles, and they get you for a lot of things, little rust spots or whatnot. But usually the manufacturer date and the amount of time that you have available to transport students safely is kind of one that they'll stick kind of hard and fast with.
There's been some legislation currently going through that will look at extending some of those out or making the appeals process a little bit more loose
Okay.
in some of those areas.
I
So
think
we'll
as
have to
long-
wait to the end of the legislative process.
I think that's just common, if anyone is in the market for cars, you've seen one, that lots aren't filled with a lot of vehicles for one, but used car prices are way jacked up too because they're not available, so.
So what do we do with the current ones that we can't use for transport anymore? Do we sell them back?
We can do a couple of things. We possibly trade them in, depending on what kind of value we get from that. We also will list them as like an auction item on the school website that sign up bid essentially will come in and we've done several vehicles like that. It's not changing or life-changing money, but it's something better than nothing.
Then nothing.
Yep.
Does that just go back into the transportation budget?
General fund essentially.
Good questions. Anyone else have anything for the finance report? If not, I would look for a motion to approve as shown.
I'll move to approve.
Motion by Bill,
A second.
seconded by Katie. Other discussion? All those in favor of the finance report as shown, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Consent agenda. Items under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted under one motion. In the event a board member wants to discuss any particular item, it will be removed from the consent agenda for separate action. Jeff, you always like to start things by acknowledging the resolution of gifts.
Yes. So the resolution of gifts for this month include $10,000 donation from Ryan Jeppesen for a Laguna CNC router table, $6,364 Education Foundation donation for a Saw Stop industrial cabinet saw, $4,298.99 from the Ed Foundation for an Ellis 16-inch miter band saw, $2,200 from the Ed Foundation from the Kindness Retreat for 5th grade, $350 from the Ed Foundation for elementary garden supplies, $2,993.75 from baseball concessions for coaches' pay, $1,000 from the Cannon Falls Fire Department for Eagle Bluff for a 4th grade trip, $800 from the Cannon Falls Fire Department for the Interact Club donation, and $1,270 from Football Boosters for helmets. And we do thank you all the generous donations that we've received.
Anything on the consent agenda that you'd like to discuss?
Yeah, I'd like to discuss the personnel listing.
What do you got?
Well, I guess, the resignation of Lily Landry and, the idea that she's a Cannon graduate, came back. If I recall, she's only been here for a short period of time. So,
She's a long-term sub.
so really, what is it that's driving the change for her to leave?
Well, it was a one-year position,
Mhm.
and then the RTI position is not there anymore because that was pre-pandemic cuts.
And so, do we know where she's going?
She's going back to Northfield. She was, on leave from Northfield for a year.
Okay. Yes, the idea that we got her in the first place as a Cannon grad, happy to have a Cannon grad come back and teach in the district, but now it's disappointing that now we're losing her. So I'm just kind of curious on, is there a way to find a spot for where we at with?
We'd have to have an open position for what we have.
And so currently, that RTI spot was funded by ESSER dollars.
Yep.
And is there truly a need for RTI? And filling that again for next year.
Well, the board added a 3rd grade position last year, and I don't know if Jennifer wants to speak
Yeah.
on this.
Yeah,
but-
for next year.
Yep, for next year. And so the choice could be between the 3rd grade position and RTI, but I don't know if you want to fund both of them.
Well, I think I had a conversation with Jen last week, a week ago, around some of this, not specifically Lily, but just discipline being one of the important factors to start education. You have to have the class in order. And so just how this fits and what we were looking to take away prior to COVID, what are we looking to put back in place, and where are our real needs at after COVID now. So
Sure.
3rd grade was first and foremost.
Yep.
The paraprofessionals and how we're working with special ed. All of these things, I think, we get to the point that we're almost reactive at the board level because I'm getting emails about a reading tutor, and that's out there already. So just that was really the conversation I had with Jen, trying to get the basis of what's happening and how is it already out there.
Well, the reading tutor position was a reading corps position that we were funding at $5,000 a year. And then this year, we used COVID dollars. When they increased that up to, our portion was 15 or 18,000. And then to fund that fully, because it's not going to be funded at all next year would be
Yeah,
roughly.
so there'll be no
25,000.
option to have her in that position.
Right.
Because she's served her time now as MRC tutor and service here.
Yep.
So is that with the program itself that,
Yeah,
that,
yep, so she's maxed out on what she can do within their program, receiving their benefits and
Oh,
all
I
that
see.
stuff, yep.
okay.
And like Bill and I spoke, she's got all of those years of interventions in place, and so that is hard to lose in that capacity.
Yeah, and so the discussion was really around what it's gonna take to keep that person, and really from the standpoint of COVID and our reading numbers were down. And is it something we should be looking at keeping to bring our reading numbers back? So that's where I was asking Jen for information, and it kind of brings into the question of Lily and losing RTI. Are we really getting the best bang for our dollars by making some of these changes? And so I'm just throwing it out there that we really do need to be a little more preemptive at the board level going into this. So I have never really been one to question admin when it comes to this, but I think we're at a very unique time. And I think there's been a lot of changes through COVID. I've been asking about mental health for the students. There's been news reports on Channel 4 and Channel 9 about
I saw
mental
those
health.
too.
So I feel like I really need to ask some of these questions ahead of time versus.
And that's
so-
all well and good, but
Yeah.
how do you pay for that?
Well, we are looking at the tech fund coming in on rolls next year. So we do have that generated into the general fund. And how we use it, do we just sock it into the general fund? And we've increased our general fund balance. Yeah, we could do that, but are we doing the best for the district? And that's kind of where the question really becomes in my mind.
If one of our goals was to increase our general fund budget, or general fund amount there, and that 400,000 is kind of earmarked to get us away from the statutory operating debt. We weren't necessarily there, but we were going to head in that direction. And this was going to be a plus for us to do that. I know exactly where you're going with that. But we need to increase our general fund. So, I don't know, it's one of those dilemmas that we face in public
Well, I think-
education. Where's that money going?
Oh, absolutely, and I think that's why I bring it up, is that with this, yeah, we have those dollars, and it'd be the easy thing to do is just to put it in the general fund. But from a discussion standpoint, we really should be looking at what's best for the district. And that's why I want to create the discussion ahead of time, so.
Yeah, and I think to Bill's point, outside looking in to this, to a few of these changes, the RTI here today and then the one that's rumored to be out there is, to me, that's two positions in education that are potentially going away. And I think we should figure out a way to look at it closer and have the conversation about.
And really, what is the cost, the net result, that sort of things, throw it on the table early on.
So the third grade position that we approved, what did we figure total cost for that position?
We always budget, 60,000
Budget, okay?
roughly?
65, 70 now.
Yeah.
And that would be the same for our TI
Mhm.
position, okay? And then about 25,000 for the tutor.
Mhm.
Are we able to have like a financial conversation, a little bit more on looking at our different budgets and our different stockpiles, if you will, and find out if there is a little bit of wiggle room in some of these areas? Obviously, looking,
This has been looked at for quite a long time.
for sure, no, I know, I get it.
Are
And the
there
biggest
any
cost is
other,
staff.
Mm-hmm.
are there any other legislative things coming down the pike with this being a I mean, because this is not just a Cannon Falls problem. It's, like all the elementary schools are seeing these drops in reading scores for these kids that didn't have that continuity in those first 2 years of elementary school. Like, are we going to see anything coming down the pike from?
Yeah, it could be cuts. If everything passes in the legislature this year, we'll be cutting.
Okay. So we're just,
At the beck and call of the state.
Mhm.
Mhm.
What is the average cost of the para?
25,000.
Okay.
That's general fund. This would be a general fund para. For a special ed para, you get 66 or 65% back, roughly. Yep. So you'd have to cash flow that the first year.
So with the third grade position, that was, if I'm remembering somewhat correctly, that was to bring class size from like what, 27, 28 down to
That was
23?
a targeted hire as a recommendation that was thoughtfully thought out through our administration team.
Yep.
As an additional cost above the staffing that we had, because with the class size numbers, we only need 3 sections.
Oh, I'm just trying to think of numbers throughout my head of
Mhm.
adding multiple, which I know, I'm sure we still have open para positions right now, or are we just about filled up?
No, I think we're pretty full.
Are we
No, we're still.
Or we're still open?
still open?
Okay.
I was just trying to figure out a combination of things of how to
Yep.
think things through. Because I know when I was part of the largest class, and I think it was the largest class in Cannon Falls history, and I believe our class sizes were around 30 to 32, and we didn't have paras,
Well,
that I remember.
the problem is too with this particular group is there's a lot of behaviors with this particular group.
Right,
which is-
and so that's where I was just
For sure.
trying to see if, trying to
Quite
figure out.
frankly, I think the recommendation, if you're gonna add a para, let's say, I think it would be in the behavioral area.
Sure.
Because you gotta have kids that are behaving properly before they learn.
Mhm.
And there's a question into GCED to see if they can squeeze that into the behavior specialist grant right now, so we're still exploring that. But you guys gotta remember that these are year-over-year costs that eventually catch up to you.
Right.
And can you fit it in a budget? Yeah. But then you guys are floating, or that we are floating on that, was it 2%?
Unassigned, yeah.
Unassigned.
That's the suggested, or what's the suggested?
Well,
Oh, okay.
Well, it's frustrating that, you say that we're at the mercy of the state, but the state has a, $13 billion surplus, and they can't seem to come to an agreement that education needs funding, and, just minimally, they can't even do that, so.
Well, you gotta remember that only, was it 7 billion of that is ongoing dollars, the rest of it is one-time money.
Right,
And so, when you're talking ongoing dollars, that's what you're really looking at long-term. One-time money is investments in roads and bridges and buildings and whatever else. So the rest of it's the operating piece that you carry from year to year. So,
yeah, it's still frustrating.
it is
And
frustrating,
that,
yeah.
yeah.
And I guess I don't get too excited because maybe it's just blind faith, but like I said, if everything passes that they have in their committee meetings right now, that I don't see where that money's coming from, honestly.
Yeah, because everything else is getting funded.
Yeah, and quite honestly, having enough staff to backfill some of those added positions too. I don't know where schools are gonna get that.
Yeah.
Realistically, I mean, it'd be great to have all that stuff that they're proposing, yeah. I don't know how you pay for it or find the staff to have it.
So I guess in the end, having a better understanding of where we're at and what we're looking at going forward, maybe it's a separate separate discussion, but, you know, we were doing cuts prior to COVID. Some of them, you know, we didn't end up having to do because of COVID dollars. And so, I mean, it just came in fast and furious, and now it's, you know, going away fast and furious. But what are we left with? And I think that's where, personally, I don't think I have a good grasp of it. So, where were we? What do we take action on? Truly take action on? And then what should we be looking at possibly putting back? Or someplace else taking away from? So
Well, and I
that's
think
kind of.
that's the discussions that we've had administratively about, these are the dollars that we have and these are the needs that we have. And we brought back the third grade position as probably the best bang for the buck at this point.
So if we decide an additional para is a good idea at some point, when would that recommendation come from administration or?
I think we need to answer some questions with GCED first.
Yeah.
And then if it's gonna be a para, where do you put that para at?
Right.
And it needs to fit into what, if it's gonna be in the elementary, what does Gen have for programming needs?
What have you, for behavioral for this year, has it gotten better throughout the year, or is it,
Behaviors?
yeah,
No.
no, worse? Or
Yep.
worse?
So we don't anticipate, just by these kids, these youngsters being in school, being in with our professionals that we have, our staff that is so good, that behaviors will get better because they're used to being in a situation where they have to have some structure, and not that they're not getting that elsewhere or didn't get that during COVID, but it feels to me like naturally there would be a progression of, okay, now we know how to act in a school, but you're not seeing that.
No, I mean, we look at data by month, and I think I've talked with a couple of you about it, but we've looked at data by month, and when you look at months that are back-to-back comparison, at least with the same number of days, and those of you sitting here would probably be able to speak to that as well, that have seen that data, yes, December was a short month, then you've got all those snow days in January. When you're comparing it 30 days to 30 days, we are seeing a continued increase. Is there anyone that would disagree with that? I mean, it's not a ton, but yes, Luke, you're right. Once we can get those supports into place, but right now we're struggling. I mean, I have a behavior coach who is, maxed out in her capacity. I was in Rezac's room with a student today for, and that's her kids missing out on service time because I need to utilize that room with the student. So there's just a lot of things that, with the amount of staff we have, are really challenging with the amount of behaviors. And that's continuing to be a roadblock every single day.
Certain ages in particular, or kind of all over?
First grade? No, I mean, we've got,
Or same people, or it's broadening out?
it's pretty much the same, I guess I would say. I mean, we've got a couple outliers there, but
So it kind of, for a position going forward, it's a battle of, do we step in and help behaviors, or do we step in and help the education RTI type?
So
And we need to-
behaviors, I feel team with mental health nicely. The lessons that are being taught in a behavior coach's classroom should coincide directly with mental health. And I'm gonna tell you right now, we're not gonna get any sort of academic gains, which I will say that there's a lot of talk about, our reading's not where it's at, it's not. I look at PLC data, and those that are sitting behind me, we're doing okay. It's not certainly what is talked about. But where we could go if behaviors were intact, and wow, we would be sitting in a whole different ballgame, I feel like. So yes, what you hear is that we're a little bit lower, okay, that's fine, but when I see PLC data, and if anyone else wants to talk about it, but I was just in a second grade PLC, I'm seeing growth, good growth, even compared to the last 3-4 years. So I think our behaviors right now are my focus. And if somebody dropped $25,000 on my plate, it would be for someone to help with behaviors, along with my behavior coach. I look at it like kind of a team
that many more kids are serviced, and I think that would be helpful.
So would there be more kids serviced by an behavior additional staff than an RTI person?
No, you're gonna probably see about the same amount of impact. But again, I can't put a kid who's having behavior concerns in an intervention group anyway. So we're having to pull back on that, some of those kids seeing their interventions anyway, because it's not a safe environment.
What are the details of the GCED part that you're looking at right now?
So we're kind of waiting to hear, sorry.
Nope, go ahead.
We were in an admin meeting last week where Sherry Johnson was there, and that question was posed of her. And so what she said is that her and our SPED director or SPED coordinator were gonna be working on it to see if that was something that we could get, because our behavior coach is paid for through GCD, part of our,
Co-op.
yes.
Thank you.
We do have a recommendation on the personnel listing to proceed. So, good conversation here. We probably stepped out of our lane just a little bit, but what's your pleasure here? We've got the approval of the last two meetings, the acceptance of gifts, personnel, and monthly bills. Did you have a chance to look at the monthly bills?
Yeah, I just had one question. I see the Mayo Clinic, athletics trainer services, I think I understand what that is, but then we have one of the last items, BSN Sports, and it's noted athletic trainer. Do we know?
Supplies.
Okay, so
Athletic trainer supplies.
we buy supplies and then the trainer fee is just for his or her.
The trainer is the cost for the trainer.
Yep. And then these are supplies for the
Yeah,
trainer.
AD.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
You bet.
So I would look for a motion to approve the consent agenda as shown.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Luke, seconded by Katie. Other discussion? All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Even though we approved that and there was good, robust discussion here, it probably hasn't stopped there. You know, people want more deeper conversation on that based on what we're hearing. I'm not sure if there's any
Definitely.
resolution there, but at the same time, it's worth discussion. So,
Yeah, I'd like to come back to that. At some point.
Yeah, I think it's just an understanding of how they fit together and what we're really looking to do and the direction we're gonna take for understanding purposes. My personal experience with my granddaughters is, the younger granddaughter is behind in reading in Wisconsin, and, even reading to her, daily, she's still behind. And so, it does exist. So, if we have some ability to make positive change, we should be looking at it. Maybe it doesn't make sense, but we should look at it. That's,
we'll close with that. Good thought. Superintendent's report.
Yes. Just some informational items first on, we'll be adding a half FTE to our speech language services for caseload management into next year. We did have a construction meeting last week with our POC committee to get updated on our construction project. The project is still on time. Sounds like the supplies are coming in. There didn't seem to be any concern, and I don't know if you guys want to speak to that, but I didn't gather that they were concerned about any, even with the HVAC
Yeah,
equipment.
sounds like everything's on time. We're still under budget and
Yep,
right on track for where we should be.
Yeah.
they're looking to begin here sometime in April.
It's
Once the
gonna be a
frost
little
gets
bit
out.
of hassle for some of the classrooms that last week of school, but Everyone will have to work through it. Luke and I got volunteered to come help.
Yep. Strong backs.
The final one is
Young, strong back.
legislative update. I was up at the Capitol last Monday and met with legislative leaders of committee leaders and on both sides of the aisle, and also with Pam Altendorf up there. There still wasn't any clear answers about how they're going to pay for a lot of the mandates that are still in committees right now. It'll be interesting to see how this ends. I've communicated with Pam quite a bit over this, communicated with legislative committee leaders about how are we paying for this. Superintendents are really nervous right now about some of the things coming through the legislation with mandates about how that's going to affect schools. Even if we're getting 4 and 2 or 5 and 5 on the formula, that could be easily swallowed up by a lot of the mandates that don't seem to have any funding to them right now, which doesn't help us at all. The good news is that it seems like any future funding will be tied to inflation. That seems pretty solid right now. So committees, bills that are being acted upon in committee positively, I believe April 6th is the deadline for them to be acted upon positively in committee, for them to move to the floors of their respected houses. So we will find out hopefully more in the next week or two.
Are we hearing anything from C, our lobbyist?
Yeah, I mean, they're up there.
Yeah.
Kind of,
Kinda giving
you
a
got your
temperature
C,
gauge.
C, MREA, MSBA, and MASA all telling the same story about, you know,
And
we need money that this group here can control for things like paras and teachers and stuff.
Right.
Don't give us mandates that may not affect us, that we still have to pay for and implement.
Yeah, I feel like we're doing a circle back to No Child Left Behind.
Kind of. So,
I'd just comment and say thanks, Jeff, for your work on the legislative stuff, because I was in one of the meetings and I've tried to follow along. It's a mess and it's not fun to follow, and so thank you for being up there and voicing your opinions and thoughts, and, along with the others.
Are you seeing some superintendents wanting some of these to go through? Are there some schools and some superintendents that
I
are
think it
benefiting
depends
from it?
on what your needs are of your district.
Correct.
You know, and that's the hard part that legislators need to understand, is that this isn't a one-size-fit-all
Mhm.
type of thing, and we have priorities in our district that may not fit what St. Paul's doing or Minneapolis is doing. And
Yeah.
so that's the hard part of it.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering if is it like all the schools in the metro are like, yep, let's do it, this is great, this is awesome, push those through, whereas the rest of us surrounding are like, no, please don't do that, you know?
Yeah, there's some of that.
Mhm.
And really, even within certain bills, there's different things that some people agree with and some people
Mhm.
don't. So if you pass it as a bill, it all comes together. So,
Mhm.
and again, it's not like I don't disagree with any of it. It's just the funding of how you're
For
gonna
sure,
make the whole thing fit.
correct.
There was some discussion at the meeting that several of us attended at Southeast Minnesota, Southeast, whatever they're called, about autonomy for the school districts.
Mhm.
Is there any other discussion on that ever? Is that something for the future that they didn't give us positive lip service on it entirely?
There's one thing that sticks out that at least MSBA and MASA has asked for, and that's the SOUPS organization, is MASA, is to allowing individual districts to renew existing operating levies without increasing it. If you have to increase it, then you would go out to the voters again. That has some traction, but I think it's at a lower priority right now. And so, again, believe what you want to hear of whoever's talking to you and see how they vote is
Mhm.
what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, and special ed funding has always been a question too, and,
Yeah.
you know, that's such a challenge.
Well, I don't know if you guys saw on Twitter, MSBA put out what Cannon Falls' cross-subsidy deficit is right now. And MASA and MSBA has asked for two things and two things only out of this legislation, and it is a 5 and 5 on the formula and to fully fund the cross-subsidy. Cross-subsidy just for Cannon Falls is just under $1 million. That's coming directly out of our general fund. $1 million. And you're talking about $25,000 for a para, $60,000 or $70,000 for an extra teacher. And it's not, those are needs, and we're just being underfunded for things that we have to provide for children, right? And again, see where they vote.
I kind of thought with the size of the surplus that we wouldn't be sitting here at this point in time and feeling down about the potential for funding. But here we are.
Well, it goes back to the ask of letting us do our job, give us the tools, and let us fulfill our needs here. Because our needs are different than Zumbrota and League City and Red Wing and everything else,
A lot of window dressing up there.
sometimes.
Anything else for us?
Nope.
Anything else for Jeff? Moving on, we have no old business. Under new business, consideration to set a date and a time for school board workshop retreat. In the past, we've had these workshops intermittently. I think because of the newness of the group, we kind of waited to make sure that everybody had their phase 2 completed, so we'd have some baseline for everybody having the same information. And I think it's good to periodically meet and discuss just what's going on. We would set a pretty firm agenda on what we can and cannot speak about, but I think it's a good idea to hold a workshop, and it doesn't have to be a 3-hour invitation. If we could even meet before a meeting sometime. We could set up lunch here and have a working meeting, start at 5, get done at 6, then have a regular board meeting. That's a thought. A separate night would be a thought, but just for convenience sake, it would just seem to me if we could piggyback it to a regular meeting and just have a workshop. It just put us all on the same page together, and again, we've all got our phases, our first 2 completed, so I think that would be a good idea. So I was hoping to do it sooner than later. And I was just wondering what people's schedules would be like if, for some it's a stress to get here by 6. How would it be to get here by 5?
I kind of like the idea of having it on a board night, because I know all those dates I've cleared already. Whether they're at 5 or 6 is a different conversation, but at least I know I'm going to be
Or what
in
about,
town.
what about at 7 after the meeting? Or 7?
Our next regular board meeting is April 10th. Would that work for people?
I would have a preference to push to May, would be my preference.
And I have a graduate, so I would prefer after graduation, but if we're pushing it to May, but, and with baseball, it's his senior year, I don't.
There's just a little tweener time on April 10th. We probably haven't jumped into the baseball scene too soon, where we'd be in full swing for all activities in May.
Not a game set for that day. Well, that's the
10th?
School's off that day. Spring break. Day after.
That Easter Monday?
Yeah.
Oh, that's in April.
Yeah.
In April. That would probably be my
Are you gone?
best
Yeah.
one then, if we don't have baseball.
We used to schedule games on April 2nd, and we knew darn well they wouldn't occur.
Oh, he's got 3 next week. Who knows if they happen,
My
but
neighbor's got a snow blower out today, pushing snow, leveling it out. So what would you think?
Can we make a motion to have this meeting and then settle on a date at a different time, or do we have to set a date here publicly?
You don't have to set it publicly, but I think if we're all sitting here, it'd be easier to try and set it. I could do the 10th.
I will not be here.
You won't be here.
And we will be on vacation, spring break.
Okay.
Bill, how would you be?
I'm available, and as I'm dressed tonight, my meetings have changed. I don't have my suit on, so I would be able to get here earlier if that's the option that we go with. But
What about the second? Do we have a second meeting in
24th.
April? The
24th.
24th?
Mhm.
If we do the 10th, that's an automatic out for Jolynn. If we do the 24th, it's reasonable Jolynn could be back by that time, not
Well,
guaranteed.
Luke's
just
gone
And
too.
Yeah,
weekend.
and myself, on the 24th,
On the 24th.
Yeah. I think our plane landing at 2, I think is,
same wedding.
yeah.
When the, again, when we get into May, I bet you we don't find a time. Do you, first of all, is that piggyback on a regular meeting
Yeah.
a good thing for us?
It's okay.
And
But if we can't do the 10th or the 24th, I think, I would make a motion that we accept a date to have a workshop, or to have a workshop with the date coming later, where we can decide if it has to be midweek.
Yeah, you won't need to take action on that.
Okay.
You'll just need to set a date so that I can post it
She's-
appropriately,
it's gotta be
because if it's
posted.
not a regular meeting, I need to post it as a special.
Yeah.
And most likely it will be a special meeting anyway, if you have it before or after the 6 o'clock timeframe. So that's what we're looking for.
What are you wanting to do, Bob, an hour? Or what?
yeah, I would think an hour would.
If you behave yourself.
Yeah, there's nothing earth-shattering on these workshops as a rule. It's just making sure everybody's on the same page and
I'm for either before or after.
Yeah, either way, I think.
And if they're going to be possibly rushed, why don't we just do it after?
Works.
after the meeting.
Yeah.
On the 24th. So. If they're,
No problem with that at all with me.
if their plane's a little bit late, they might be late for the meeting, but if everyone else is here, we still have a quorum.
Yeah, because that's supposed to be an open meeting,
Yep,
correct?
yep,
Okay.
The workshop is?
yep.
Yeah.
So, the 24th seems like where everybody's leaving, or everybody's agreeing to. And the time to be determined would be after the regularly scheduled board meeting, correct?
Let's just do that.
Yep.
Would anybody like to make a motion of that?
I'll make a motion.
Clint
I'll second.
and Jolynn, second. All in favor of a workshop, retreat, special meeting, whatever we want to call it, on 4/24 following the regularly scheduled board meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
It's painful.
Sometimes, you know.
I just did you
can just
both a
wrestle with
favor
it.
because now your spouses have to deal with
Okay, next up is the consideration to approve the 22-23 spring coaching list.
Yeah, the golf coaches got finalized down there and those are in red. And Reed is coaching
I saw
due to the
that.
fact nobody would take the paid position.
Yeah, you
out of
have all those volunteers
volunteers.
and you couldn't get a paid,
Well, they
Time
just wouldn't
commitment.
show
Yeah.
up consistently
yeah, that's.
for that, so.
Anybody have any questions with it? If not, I would look for a motion to approve the coaching list as shown.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Katie on the motion,
I'll second.
seconded by Clint. Other discussion?
Yeah, the red were the additions, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, all in favor of approving the 22-23 spring coaching list, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Consideration to approve a 10-cent meal price increase for the 23-24 school year, and you see the prices as shown. Jeff?
Yes, with the legislature's passing the school meals for all recently, we still need to set a price because if kids want an extra meal, that is one reason. And then if the legislature ever decides to pull the funding away from lunches, we will need to keep up with increases because we can only increase the lunches 10 cents a year.
Is it been standard that we've done this yearly? Okay.
Yeah, always with mixed emotions, I think. You know, the
Yeah.
whole idea that there could be funding issues for some families, but yet, I mean, it's across the board that you gotta be able to pay for the
Yeah.
food service.
The cost of food
Mhm.
alone is a concern.
Yeah, so I'll make the motion for,
I'll
Motion
second.
by Bill, seconded by Luke. Other discussion? All in favor of the 10-cent meal increase for the upcoming school year, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Consideration to approve a leave in accordance with Teachers' Master Agreement, Article 10, Leaves of Absence, Section 10, childcare leave.
This one is for Morgan Schwartz, and I recommend approval.
Look for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Jolynn on the motion,
I'll second.
seconded by Luke. Other discussion? All in favor of the approval of the childcare leave as shown, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Consideration to approve a leave in accordance with Teachers' Master Agreement, Leaves of Absence, Section 10, childcare leave.
This one's for Liz Malika, and I recommend approval.
I'll make motion to approve.
Motion by Luke,
I'll
second by Katie. Other discussion? All in favor of this childcare leave, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Consideration to approve a leave in accordance with Teachers' Master Agreement, childcare leave.
This one's for Liza O'Brien, and I recommend approval.
Motion,
I'll make motion to approve.
Luke,
I'll second.
Jolynn on the second. Other discussion? All in favor of this childcare leave, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
the question following all of those. What would happen in the event that someone went in early?
We've always
Would
had
they-
the
how would-
standing,
Would they come back to us? If they have them, the dates changed?
Leave early, come back early?
depends on if they want to do that, or if they leave early, obviously they can control that sometimes.
Right.
So if they come back early, then do they usually, or do they come back early, Lori? Has that been the
It
history?
depends, they'll work with the principal.
Some of them stick to the
Yeah,
original
them
date of
themselves,
coming back,
just
and
depends.
some of
And
them
it's
come
just
back
that
early,
Just
depending
sick
on
days, you know.
sick days versus unpaid.
Whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
It
okay.
depends on how early, that kind of thing.
Well, it's just, there's several of them, I'm thinking, okay, well, a couple of them are piled on top of one another, and, so, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, number 7, consideration to approve for the teacher's master agreement, this childcare leave, September 11th, October 18th.
This is for Taryn Benson, and I recommend approval.
I'll make a motion.
A second.
Julian on the motion, seconded by Katie. Other discussion? All in favor of this childcare leave, September 11, October 18th, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
I'm gonna spend some time in the water.
So our regular scheduled meeting is coming up April 10th, and 6 PM. Some of these things will be dealt with down here, and some of them are just coming to, moving up the numbers. So, as you can see, we'll be busy for the next little while, and then we've got one of the busier times of the year in May for us with graduations and proms and other activities, so May will be a very busy time as well. Anybody have anything for the cause? If not, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Katie on the motion to adjourn. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Jolene wins that. On the second. Any other discussion? All in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are finished.